God, again, our prayer is that you would strengthen our church. God, that you would strengthen each of us, Lord, that as we seek to invest and help others, that we would even find that that's something that you use to help us grow as well. God, build us into a body that is knit together in love. And God, use us for your glory. Let us be a light in this world, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. So let me give you the title for Session 8, and then I'll explain it a little bit, because it might not click with you right away. But the title for Session 8 is Go, Spurs, Go. Go, Spurs, Go. So I spent most of my youth growing up in San Antonio, Texas. I lived there for 10 years, and if you've gotten to know me a little bit, when my family moved there when I was 8 from California, and if you know me, and even especially my brothers, we didn't exactly latch on to all things Texas, right? In fact, me and my brothers, we all moved back to California as soon as we could, right? As soon as we had the ability to decide where we were going to live, we moved back to California. And now I've moved here to what we know is the actual best state in America, to Idaho. But none of us would ever at any point in our lives have claimed the title Texan. There's a saying in Texas that goes like this: never ask somebody what state they're from. If they're from Texas, they'll let you know. And if they're not, you don't want to embarrass them, right? That's the mindset of Texas that we never really fully got into. So we never had any of those don't mess with Texas stickers, no cowboy hats or boots from when we lived there, none of that. But the things we did love, we loved the church that we were a part of there. My parents are still living in San Antonio. My dad's been at the same church there for over 20 years. They're even seen pictures of him posting. They're having like a mini men's conference there at their church this morning. That was a great place to grow up and to be a part of. But the other big thing that my family, we all jumped in on was the San Antonio Spurs, right? We all became huge San Antonio Spurs fans. And actually, it seemed to me like it was our arrival in San Antonio that really spurred them on to bigger and better things. I mean, when we moved there, they had been to the NBA Finals 0 times. Now they've not only been, they've won 5 NBA titles. You're welcome to the Spurs. But it was actually a fun team to root for. When we got there, it was actually led by a couple vocal, solid Christian men. So that was kind of a fun thing to be a part of. And it's the only major sports team in San Antonio, so the whole city is kind of like a one high school town, right? Where when the Spurs are doing good, like the whole city, like when the Spurs had a late night playoff game, you show up to school the next day, like the entire school is dragging, like teachers included, because we were all up late watching the Spurs. It was a fun thing. But that idea of Spurs, what is that? Even when they would write out the name Spurs, it was the U there in the middle of the name that they would actually, that was the logo, right? They turned the U into a spur, which is something that, a cowboy puts on his boot that wraps around the boot, and then sticking out the back, then there's kind of that round, circular, spinny thing that has a bunch of pointed, pokey ends on it. And what is it used by the cowboy riding the horse, to spur the horse on, right? And you would not, that doesn't always, it's not like, all right, horsey, let's go, right? The Spurs is pokey, it's kind of sharp sometimes, but it's, hey, let's go faster, let's run harder, let's go. Take your Bibles and turn with me to Hebrews chapter 10. Hebrews chapter 10. Because this idea of spurring each other on, right? You think about a cowboy spurring on the horse with the literal spurs on his boots, right? This is an idea that is used even in Scripture to talk about. Let's look at Hebrews 10, and starting in verse 24, it says, "And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good deeds." Or if you have the NIV, it will say, "Let us consider how to spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." That's what I want to talk about now. How do we spur one another on? Or another phrase that's used there, encourage one another. So hopefully we love these people. Hopefully we're investing in relationships with these people. But now, how can we spur them on? How can we use our words to help them run faster, run harder after the Lord? And I love even how it starts there. The main verb in there is let us think. Let us consider. Let's stop and think, how could we do this? And that's really what I want to do in this session, is to stop and think, all right, how can we as Christians spur one another on, encourage one another? And there's an urgency to this. You get it there at the end of verse 25, as you see the day approaching. I don't know when Jesus is coming back, but I can tell you this for sure. It's sooner today than it was yesterday. And it's going to be sooner tomorrow. And I don't know when it's going to be. And there's an urgency. And then the other passage that I want us to look at, just go back to Hebrews chapter 3. We also get this sense of urgency. Hebrews chapter 3, starting in verse 12. Hebrews chapter 3, starting in verse 12. It says, "Take care, brothers, lest there be in any of you an evil, unbelieving heart, leading you to fall away from the living God. But exhort one another every day, as long as it is called today, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. For we have come to share in Christ, if indeed we hold our original confidence firm to the end. As it is said, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as in the rebellion," right? There's a context of urgency there. The central command is, hey, exhort one another every day. Every day, we need to be encouraging one another. But the context of that is there's a danger that we're going to start listening to the lies of our evil, unbelieving heart. That there's a danger that some of us are going to be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. And when you look around at the other people in your life group or the person sitting next to you on Sunday morning, this is another time that we don't want to make assumptions. We don't want to assume, well, they must be doing fine. We also don't want to assume, well, man, this person must really be struggling, right? No, that's not fair. What you do want to realize, and I think the picture that we do want to understand, is we are in a battle. How many times in the Bible does it describe the Christian life as a war, as a battle? A lot. And that's what we need to realize. We are in the battle, and I don't know how that person is doing, but what I do know is the bullets are flying, right? Every single day, the bullets are flying. Every day, this person in my group, or this person that I know at church, or maybe this other believer at my workplace, right? Their sinful heart is lying to them. The world is trying to tempt them. The devil has got all kinds of schemes to try to trip them up, right? There is a war going on. The bullets are flying. And I don't know how the person in the foxhole next to me is doing, but every day I want to check in, right? And I want to be there to encourage them and support them. And hey, maybe what they need is just, hey, we're still here too. Let's keep fighting. Or maybe they have been hit and you need to crawl over there and help them out, right? We don't know, but there's an urgency. And even I want us to be very practical with this session. The point is, if you are here, if you are a Christian, if you are a part of our church, then God wants you doing something to encourage somebody every single day. That's the mindset that we should have. And now what I want us to get into is that's going to look different in different situations and with different people. 1 Thessalonians 5:14 says this, "And we urge you, brothers, admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with them all." And I want to give us 3 ways that we can use our words to encourage one another, to spur one another on, to build up one another. So 3 ways. And the first is to lift up. Lift up. Again, the bullets are flying. The battle is hard. And if we're all honest with ourselves, we know what it's like to be discouraged, to be sitting in your foxhole saying, this is hard. Or maybe sitting in your foxhole saying, this is kind of scary, right? It can be a difficult thing. And there are people, I can guarantee you, in your life, they need some encouragement. They need a brother or sister in Christ to come and lift them up with their words. They need to know, hey, I've got somebody in my corner. I've got somebody that cares about me, that's checking in on me. You need to lift them up. And this kind of carries over from the last session, but I think the easiest way to do this is just to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I'm praying for you today, right? And it's been, for Paul to do that with, Timothy or Titus, he had to write a letter that had to get sent that would take months to get there. You can pull out your phone and send a text message that gets there instantly. It has never been easier in the history of the world to do this than it is right now, okay? To send somebody a message and say, hey, I'm praying for you. But then, okay, you have to actually be praying for people every day to be able to say that. So that's a good place to start, which gets us back to session 3, you spending time with the Lord and focusing that prayer on spiritual things and not even all just on your own needs, but praying for other people. I mean, have you ever gotten a text from somebody just reaching out to you, letting them know that they're praying for you and had a negative reaction to that? Probably not. I mean, are you really nervous about doing that? I mean, have you ever gotten that text message and not just been encouraged, saying, man, that's helpful to know. And even when you're discouraged, maybe it's even just, yeah, I need it, right? And you could be that for somebody else, right? You don't need to feel like some spiritual titan to lift somebody else up. Sometimes just knowing, hey, you're praying for them might be just another thing that person can hold on to make it through that day. And this is where I think sometimes sharing Scripture with somebody can be helpful. And again, never been easier. You could text somebody a verse in a text message, and probably better the more thoughtful it is, the more personal it is, right? I'm not just talking about, all right, I'm sending out the mass group text to everybody, but hey, there's a specific person, and hey, I read this specific verse this morning, and it made me think of you, right? And sometimes it might even just look like, hey, so-and-so, you encouraged me. Thanks for that. Like this verse about doing this thing right made me think of you, and I feel like you're doing this right. Keep going. You see how you've lifted that person up? Maybe that person is starting to tire and think, hey, I'm doing all this and nobody cares. It's not having any effect. And you coming along saying, hey, this is making a big difference. Was that little spur, probably a more gentle spur in the side to, hey, all right, let's keep going, right? Maybe it's your kids ministry teacher or your life group leader, even if you're not, just saying, hey, I appreciate you, right? And how that can go a long way. Sometimes we don't even have the words to say, but even just spending time with somebody, right? And this might be with somebody, hey, they're going through a tough time. Like, things are hard for them right now. And so just saying, hey, let's grab lunch, or hey, why don't you come over for dinner? And even just spending that time where you might not even have words, you might not communicate a lot verbally, but you're communicating, hey, I'm here for you, and I'm in your corner, and I'm going to be here for you, right? Maybe it's even just as simple as a big hug on a Sunday morning, right? That you're communicating to somebody saying, hey, I love you, I care about you, I'm trying to lift you up. And this can be so powerful. We'll talk about this in the next session, but I hope you understand, well, maybe some people are, but most people, they're not expecting you to have all the answers, and that's not a fair expectation, right? And lots of times we think to encourage somebody, I need to have the perfect thing to say, right? That's not true. Just communicating that you care many times is the perfect thing to say, and is exactly what somebody needs. And they need you to come and lift them up. So that's the first way we can spur one another on, is just lifting each other up. Another way we can use our words is maybe to challenge somebody to step up. Lift up or step up, right? And this is where we get an idea maybe of spurring them on, helping them run a little harder. And this is where, hey, this person is maybe not doing anything wrong, right? You're not looking at their life and being like, oh man, yikes, 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 or anything like that. But just, man, how can I help them grow? How can I help them be stronger? And this is where I think, going back to one of our last sessions, just the idea of asking questions can be helpful, right? You want to spur somebody on to evangelism? Just ask them about it. Hey, so have you had a chance to share the gospel with anybody recently? And maybe that's a question we should all ask ourselves from time to time, and then just asking that question, and maybe even it spurs yourself on to ask that question towards others. Or again, this is where the follow-up questions, when somebody shares something in a group setting, right, that, hey, maybe you can't even get into, you bring it up with them later. And you maybe get to work through that with them. Or maybe, you look at somebody and, hey, this person's a young parent, or this person's, in a new life stage of retirement or whatever it may be, and you just ask about that. Hey, how would you like to grow as a father? How would you like to, hey, so you've been retired for a year now. How's that been? And how would you like to grow and use this season in your life, right? Where, again, you're not accusing them of anything. And maybe that's just a great question, asking people, hey, what are the areas in your life that you would like to grow the most? Where you might not even be the one supplying the answers and challenging them to step up, but just your questions will get them thinking, right? And that gets us back to Hebrews 10, right? It's let us consider, let us think, how can we spur one another on? And that's where, all of us, we can get so in the grind mode and in the day-to-day mode and just I got to get what I got to get done today, right? That it's helpful for us to come alongside each other and ask some of these questions to kind of lift up our head and be like, yeah, how am I doing here? How would I like to grow here? And even just the question might be helpful. And again, another thing is as we open up, right? That's going to hopefully spur people on by our example, our words and sharing what God's doing in our own lives will challenge somebody else to step it up. And even again, when we're opening up, it's not, hey guys, I'm the standard. Let me tell you what God's doing in my life. Because it's the exact example that He wants you doing, right? No, that's not the idea, but it's just being genuine, being real with people, right? It's even something we talk about in life groups. There's the right answer, and sometimes there's the real answer, right? And that's where even as a leader, sometimes you got to be sharing that real answer and letting people in on what God's doing in your life, right? So that they can kind of see and learn, and that's going to help them step it up. That can be a way too. And another way you can encourage people to step up is by encouraging them to serve or to invest in other people. And part of that even is affirmation. I mean, going to somebody that you know at the church and, hey, they're not plugged anywhere and saying, hey, have you ever thought about serving on the tech team? Have you ever thought about kids ministry? Have you ever thought about this? I think you would be great at that, right? And just that encouraging, affirming statement can be all that they need to say, okay. Because some people, maybe they want to serve, but they're a little hesitant about it, and they feel like, I probably won't make a difference, right? But somebody come along saying, no, you will make a difference. And then you encouraging people, hey, to live out the things we're talking about here. You go into somebody else in your group and saying, hey, have you been able to connect with this new person in the group yet? Like, hey, I think you could be a huge encouragement to them. Like, why don't you try to get together with them for lunch, right? Like, you're encouraging them to step up and to start to invest in relationships, right? There's a lot of ways we can use our words. And again, it's got to come back to thinking, being considerate. Or maybe you even, as you're praying for people in your life, in your circles that you're praying for regularly, one question you should ask is, hey, God, would you show me how I could encourage this person? Would you show me how I could spur them on and help them step it up, not in an arrogant way, not in a proud way, not in a, hey, look at what I'm doing, step it up and do what I'm doing, but in their own way, just praying for that. And I think if we pray for that, God's going to help us. He's going to answer that prayer, and He's going to help us see how we can encourage others to step up. So lift up, step up, and then third, maybe we'll spend the most time because this might be the most delicate, shape up, right? And I'm using that for more ease of memory than not the phrase you want to probably use with somebody. Hey, so-and-so, you really need to shape up, right? We'll talk about that's not the way to go about it, but for ease of memory, lift up, step up, shape up, right? Sometimes somebody's doing the right thing and you're just trying to be the wind in their sails. Sometimes you're trying to, hey, I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I just want to help this person, run harder, run faster. And then sometimes there's a problem that needs to be addressed. You see something off in somebody else's life. And the main ways we see this in Scripture is they're off in their doctrine and what they're saying in their teaching, or they're off in their life and how they are living somehow. And I think if I took a poll here this morning, the biggest fear in the room is actually that most of you might be afraid of overdoing it when you do this. I think if we took a poll and the people in the room that woke up this morning like, confrontation, Yes, right? The people that love that, I think that's the small minority, right? There definitely are some people that, hey, this is their favorite thing, and if it is, I'd probably say, remember session 6? Loving other people? Like, let's talk about how we'll make sure that is the focus here. But I'm guessing for most people in this room, that, like, remember the Rex from Toy Story, right? He's like, I just don't like confrontations, right? I think that's probably most people in the room are more that way, right? So whether you're that or whether you're Mr. Man, I love getting into this, right? What can we do to make sure we're doing this the right way? Because on the one hand, I want to say it's necessary. There are going to be times where, and we've all needed this. We've needed somebody to come and say, hey, what's going on here? And we've needed our eyes to be opened to that. And there's going to be times you've got to be the one to have that conversation. So how can we do it the right way? 2 passages of Scripture that I want us to look at. One is Galatians chapter 6. If you want to turn there, Galatians chapter 6, and really just the first couple verses there. In Galatians 6, verse 1, it says, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But let each test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor, for each will have to bear his own load. So even another passage where we get this idea, I think that's similar here, is when Jesus says, hey, watch out if you're trying to take the speck out of your brother's eye while you've got the plank in your own eye. That's step 1 here, right? Even there at the end of verse 1, hey, keep watch on yourself. So even before I ever talk to somebody else about something concerning I see in their life, I'm looking at myself. And I'm making sure, hey, I'm not blind to something here, am I? Is there any shade of hypocrisy on whatever it is that I'm going to talk about? If so, then I want to step away from that. And I want to check myself. And then it talks about in a spirit of gentleness. And even look at the way it says there, if someone is caught in a transgression. I think another thing that would help us when we have to have these conversations is we want to, as much as possible, give the person the benefit of the doubt, right? Because what we can see is somebody's actions. We can see their words. What we cannot see is their heart. And sometimes what we do is we see certain words and then we start to assume, well, then this must be where their heart is at. And sometimes that's not right. I mean, like literally we're incorrect. Like that's not the heart motive. And so we want to try to give them the benefit of the doubt on the things that we can't see as much as we possibly can. And that's where I would say, hey, it's hard sometimes to read somebody else's motives and to know why they're doing what they're doing. And I think if we're going to do this in a spirit of gentleness, if we're going to do this in a way that's circumspect and thinking about ourselves, another practical step along the way is we just got to pray, right? We should never be having this conversation without praying about it. And asking God, if there is something in me that I'm not seeing, make it clear. God, help me to be gentle in this conversation. Lord, I want to assume the best. And if there are things that I don't know, Lord, help just bring those to light. Help this be an open conversation. And then the other passage that I want us to see is Matthew 18. Go to Matthew chapter 18. And this is where Jesus is teaching what to do when your brother sins against you. Matthew 18:15. Matthew 18:15 says, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. So even just a couple important things there. One, it's in private, right? If you, I mean, especially, and this is clear, like somebody has sinned against you, right? So this person is not just, man, this guy's saying some things I'm not totally sure about. So no, they've done something that has hurt you. You go to them and you do this in private. You don't start airing your grievances in public. You don't start blasting the person to other people. You go to that person and talk to them. And then it says, between you and him alone, if he listens to you, you have gained your brother. What's the goal of a conversation like this? It's always to win your brother. That is the goal. And remember session 6, forgiveness? Like, you have to go into this conversation having already forgiven the person. Because what you want to do is, I'm taking myself out of it. And even my biggest concern in having this conversation isn't so much how they've hurt me, it's my concern for them and what they're doing and their relationship with Christ. Because I want to go in not just feeling vindicated. That's not the goal. My goal is to win my brother. My goal is, if they've done something wrong, the biggest thing isn't how it's affected me. It's how it's ultimately going to affect them, right? It's got to be the goal to win your brother. And that's where I would also encourage you, always just, when this comes up, bring up your concern in a gentle yet straightforward way. And one thing I would encourage you is be open to being wrong. I mean, there's a lot of different situations. And I mean, it's one thing if you see somebody from your life group rob a bank, right? And you see them, you saw their face, right? You heard their voice, you know it was them, right? Okay, there's no question, was that right or wrong, right? Like, hey, so I was making a withdrawal the other day and this guy came and it was you, right? I mean, not every, like, that's kind of a ridiculous hypothetical, right? But I'm just trying to say not every situation is totally clear in black and white, right? Sometimes you might see something that you're reading a certain way, and you might talk to them and find out, actually, I wasn't correct. So sometimes you need to go into this conversation not saying, I'm right, and I'm going to try to prove this person wrong. My goal is to win their brother. And then most of the time, I would say, there's information that you don't know. And sometimes, not all the time, that information kind of changes things and will change the conversation. And when your goal is to win your brother and not be vindicated, then you're much more open to that. Because if you find out, okay, maybe they said this thing, and hey, you know what? They already regret that they said that. And actually, they said it because of this and not because of what I thought, because of this. And that's where I think we've got to know when to drop it and when to keep going, right? There's some times where you might share something, and even, hey, as you talk about it, it might not be a crystal clear black and white issue, but you've come gently and just say, hey, I don't know where your heart's at in this, but I just want you to know, like, I hear you saying some of these things, and I just want you to know, I think sometimes it's really coming across like this. And the other person maybe gets defensive and says, well, I don't mean it like that, and there might not be total agreement, but maybe in those situations you say, hey, I've said what I've needed to say. That person's not totally tracking with me, but I kind of see where they're coming from, and hey, I've said what I need to say, and I'm going to bear with this person, be patient with this person, love this person, right? And continue to reach out. I mean, there are situations, like we see in Matthew 18, where it comes to the person has to be asked to leave the church, right? But what I want us to see, that's going to be when the sin is open, when the sin is clear, and when the sin is unrepentant. If we try to turn, hey, this person said something to so-and-so, every one of those situations into a resolve this or you're out kind of deal, no, that's not the kind of church that we want to be, and I don't think that's the kind of church that God wants us to be, right? So sometimes when it's, hey, maybe there's a difference of opinion, and hey, I'm not going to do things the way this person is doing it, but I've had that conversation. I'm going to pray that God uses it to help them, but hey, that's it. And then the conversation needs to be over now, and I need to affirm my love for this person and move on, right? And continue to be patient and trust that God is going to work. And when we do want to move forward with, hey, I need to go talk to a leader about this, I need to go talk to the pastor about this, right? That's when, hey, this isn't a difference of opinion. This is clear. You know, when you're talking to the guy who's robbed the bank and it's clear and he's saying, I'm going to keep robbing banks and nothing you're going to say is going to stop. I mean, again, that's an extreme example, but it's got to be, hey, there's clear sin, right and wrong, and this person is not repenting of it. That's when things are going to escalate and more of the church is going to get involved in the conversation. But I'm going to say, when I'm talking about this, that's going to be the smaller percentage of these kind of conversations that the average person in the church is going to have. But if you go into it prayerfully, gently, circumspectly, examining yourself, I think God could use these conversations to make us all stronger. And that's where we need to be open to this ourselves. And sometimes, again, we all have blind spots, right? And sometimes it's helpful for somebody to bring that up and realize, yikes, I didn't know I was coming across that way. And that is concerning to me. And I do want to change. And that's where the point of this, remember, we want to come back to, we need to just do this, right? And that's where, again, even I think some of these shape-up conversations, again, don't use that term when you're talking to the person. I think that'll be the minority of what you're doing if you're really saying encourage somebody every day. I don't think every day it's going to be, all right, got to talk to somebody else about something I see wrong. I think most of it is going to be those first two. And that's where probably the easiest one is just, hey, how can I lift up somebody else today with my words? And we need to leave here today and say, just do it, right? Encourage somebody today, encourage somebody tomorrow, encourage a brother or sister in Christ every day until Jesus comes back or you die, right? That's what God has called us as Christians to do. And again, if everybody in the church is doing that, what a stronger place we will be. Because we need that communication. Communication is key. And again, and part of it is we have blind spots, right? Or we just get focused on our task that sometimes, even not in a corrective way, we just need somebody to lift up our head and say, whoa, there's a need over here I could help, right? Lift up, step up, shape up. You know, when I think back to those Spurs teams of my youth that won a lot of championships, you might, even if you're not a Spurs fan, you might not even be able to name anybody that was on the team throughout those years. Because we didn't have Michael. We didn't have Kobe. We didn't have LeBron, these guys that you recognize by one name. But what the Spurs did have, they had a team. And they were lots of times that picture of not the superstar, but the team working together. And if you've ever played basketball, you know one thing that's required on that basketball court is communication. Because you're guarding your guy and you're paying attention to what's going on over here. And something's happening over here and somebody on your team needs to call out something. And there needs to be that communication. There needs to be that within the church. We've got to be communicating with each other. We've got to be using our words to encourage one another, and we need to be doing it every single day. I mean, we got about 100 people in this room this morning. Imagine if we had 100 people at our church seeking to encourage somebody else every single day. That would be powerful. That would make a huge difference.